Hello everybody, this is Jeffrey the Librarian. Today we're going to talk about a very common question that American history people often ask. Why did Robert E. Lee do Pickett's charge? Why didn't he listen to Longstreet? Why didn't he redeploy? Why did Robert E. Lee, who was so prudent and so intelligent and such an accomplished general, why did he do something as disastrous as Pickett's charge on July 3rd, 1863? That's a very good question, and it's a question worth discussing. As Shelby Foote has said, the only person who knows what was going through Robert E. Lee's mind on July 3rd, 1863 was Robert E. Lee himself. And so this is all just Monday morning quarterback, looking at something that happened over 150 years ago, and having all of the hindsight at our side. So Robert E. Lee has been in this war for now, this is now the third year of the war, and the South is outnumbered. It doesn't have the industrial power that the North has. It doesn't have the men. It cannot fill the ranks. So Robert E. Lee is maybe thinking, I need to wrap this thing up. I can't keep this war going on forever. The United States just has too many men. It has too many munitions. And this war cannot just go on and on. I have to decisively conclude this, and I have to do it fast. Just prior to Gettysburg, Robert E. Lee had stunned the United States Army at Chancellorsville. He did something totally unorthodox. He had Stonewall Jackson move through the night, move around the Union Army. He completely shocked and surprised the Union Army with a very daring move, and it turned out very successful. So Robert E. Lee had done daring attacks before, and they worked. The point about Gettysburg is, on the first day of Gettysburg, the South was winning. They pushed the Union back. The Union was pushed back through town, and they're now situated on pretty good ground southeast of the town of Gettysburg. On the second day, Robert E. Lee does a simultaneous attack where he's going to strike up the Emmitsburg Road, and then he's going to, at the same time, strike down at Culp's Hill. He's going to sort of try to squeeze the Union Army on Cemetery Hill and Cemetery Ridge. That didn't work. It was rebuffed. Now the Confederates did take the Peach Orchard, and they did have a headway onto Culp's Hill to the northeast of the Union line. However, on the morning of July 3rd, the Union does push the Confederates off of Culp's Hill, and the Union, before Pickett's charge happened, had solidified their right flank. Now, perhaps Robert E. Lee is thinking, well, the Union Army has now redoubled the right flank on Culp's Hill. We hit them already the day before on Cemetery Ridge, and we almost did it. There were some moments where Confederate brigades actually did make it to or on Cemetery Ridge, but they didn't have any backup. And maybe he's thinking, well, if they just have some backup, if we have a larger concentrated attack at one point, we might be able to do this. Robert E. Lee had all these fantastic successes. He had outperformed what he was expected to do. The Civil War was not supposed to be this long, dragged-out war. The North had all the advantages, and if you looked at it on paper, the North should have finished up this war pretty fast. However, Robert E. Lee had consistently beaten back the Union Army again and again and again. Outnumbered, outgunned, he had succeeded. George Washington, 100 years earlier, was the opposite. When he was a young man, he was involved in every disaster that the British Army was in. And so he knew the sting of defeat. He knew how easy it was to get beaten, and get beaten bad. So Robert E. Lee he's sort of used to winning. And perhaps that's part of it. Perhaps this is part of it, is that he's not yet used to the sting of defeat. And George Washington, 100 years earlier, was very used to getting beaten. And he knew the sting of defeat. Now there is some hyperbole with Pickett's charge. So in context, for Robert E. Lee, and for the South in general, and for Robert E. Lee in particular, Pickett's charge was a big disaster. However, in the context of the Civil War, decisions like Pickett's charge were happening all the time. The North consistently was making horrific decisions that were like Pickett's charge. So for instance, at Fredericksburg, the North did Pickett's charge again and again and again. It was a total disaster. Lots of battles had something like Pickett's charge in it, where a general made a decision that went horribly wrong. Pickett's charge stands out because it's a bad decision that Robert E. Lee makes. It's like a straight A student turns in a bad paper. You just wouldn't expect it. Students all the time turn in bad papers, but when the straight A student turns in a bad paper, it gets noticed. Another factor to maybe Lee's thinking is perhaps in the back of his mind, he knows out west things are not going well for the South. The Civil War in the Western theater is sort of going how you would expect the Union Army to succeed. If you were to look at it on paper, the Union Army has this many advantages. They have this many men. They have this many more munitions. They have this many supply wagons. They're actually advancing pretty successfully down the Mississippi River, and they're really close to completely controlling the Mississippi River and dividing the South. And so maybe Robert E. Lee in his mind is thinking, I need to win now. We're on the precipice of being cut in half by General Grant out west. So we need to win, and we need to win now. On this channel, we like to talk about books. A great reference book is Timeline of the Civil War. This is by John Wright, and it's really easy to just sort of flip through. If you need the dates are all on the bottom banner of the book. Very quick reference to find the dates, how many men were engaged, how many casualties there were at the battles. Keep reading about history. If you like this program, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.